Okay. So first off, thank you to Ness for organizing this startup pitch thing. Because when I was listening to that previous panel, I was getting pretty exhausted. I was like, oh my God. First they feed you food, then you put in a coma, and then they make me come and like try to revive you. So I came up with a plan, and I was like, how am I going to wake all these semi-asleep people up? So what I'm going to ask you to do is please rise from your seats if you can. Come on, you can stand up. Now, everybody who has started a company or is going to start a company, please stay standing, and everybody else can sit down. So it's a bigger number than I thought. It makes me very happy. My talk is for you. For everybody that sat down, your job, if you want to make this ecosystem happen, is to help these people that are standing up, every single one of them. You are my target market, so when this works, you have to come and tell me that it works or how I can make it better. A little bit about me. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. It took 10 years of fear before I made the jump to start my own company. And in that process, I learned so many things that I want to transfer some of them to you. And ultimately, every startup, regardless of where they are, have one goal, and one goal only. That goal is to get to product market fit. Now, what is product market fit? Product market fit is basically what investors like to call once you've made it, once you're investable, once you're making money, when you're sleeping, your customers are coming to you, your only problems are, how do I scale this thing? How do I make this thing work? How do I hire people fast enough? Now, unfortunately, most founders are not in that boat. And the glorified part of entrepreneurship is post-product market fit. There's very little content, literature, and that's the hard part that you have to figure out as an entrepreneur. How do you do that? In one line, you find what's true but not obvious. What I've done is that I've made every mistake as a founder, and somehow we got lucky and we were in the right industry, and all the stars aligned that we were able to exit our company. Alhamdulillah. And what I want to do is transfer some of those things to you. Now, how do you get to success? You reduce the number of blind spots. I thought I was the only founder who kind of made all these mistakes, but once I exited my company and I started helping other companies, I realized that this was like a pandemic. People would jump in, start a company, and then try to figure out the most important part of their business while running with huge blind spots. So I came up with something. How do you learn as quickly as possible and reduce the number of blind spots you have? And instead of kind of having a macro discussion about like, oh, talk to customers and hustle and whatever crap people talk about, I want to leave you with a very specific plan on how you can figure out what you need to learn and where you need to learn it in 4 weeks. So first things first. Number one blind spot I had as a founder, I think a lot of founders have it. And before I get into that, I want to say, if you're a founder, you have to think of yourself like a commando, okay? You're good than the average person at a lot of different things, but you're worse than the extreme specialist. So you know how to use a sniper, but a sniper would kill you in 2 seconds. But the average person does not know how to use a sniper. So how do you become that guerrilla? How do you become that commando and go and find a castle? The easiest way that this commando tried to do it, to build a tank and say, I'm going to build a tank, and then I'm going to go break down to this castle. When I got to the castle, I realized that my tank, one, was not good enough, and two, you didn't need a tank to break it. So what do you need to do? As a commando, you're not trying to expand your energy as much as possible. You're trying to conserve as much of your energy as much as possible, where you figure out what the landscape looks like, where you figure out who the competition is, you figure out what the ways of entries are, and all you have to do is get into that castle and hold it for long enough until your friends at the venture capital firms and other places come in and send reinforcements. So we're going to keep with that metaphor for a while because I'm going to try to explain a few things there. So number one takeaway, writing code is good. The ability to be a programmer is a blessing and a curse because you want to solve everything with code. So what you want to do, and I'm sorry the emojis are a little messed up, but in approximately 4 weeks, how do you validate your idea? The reason why I did this talk is because I did this, and a lot of founders do it, where they're basically, now imagine you're a commando, and there's a castle in front of you, and you're shooting wildly in the air, and you're going to get one hit somewhere. When you hear a noise, you're going to know where to go. What you really want to do is you want to take your time, about 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, and aim first. Once you can aim, you either hit or you miss, and you learn something from it. So first week, you do a lot of research, the boring stuff. It's not that boring, huh? Like, Twitter is amazing because, and I mean, the size of the logos is proportionate to the amount of effort you need to spend into it. No matter what your idea is, guess what? It's not original. Somebody came up with it before. They're probably going to try to talk about it on Twitter. You can go and find them. You can figure out what they're talking about. And a lot of times, the Twitter search function is your best friend in helping you find something like this. For example, this is Ryan Hoover, who runs Product Hunt, which most of the people that stood up already know about, and the people that didn't stand up should go figure out. He basically tweeted like, hey, how about if I could use Genius for product design decisions? And I replied, would you pay $50 for it? And he said, and he replied privately, but somebody else said, yeah, I would pay a lot of money for that too. So now that conversation's on Twitter already, and if you were going to start a company like that, you could go and figure it out. There's tons and tons of conversations on Twitter that give you a lot of insight. The other tool is Ahrefs, which is basically like backlinks, and it tells you how popular something is and how much people are searching for. Then there's Reddit, which is great. You can go and look at a product and its competitors and figure out what people are complaining about. And then finally, if you're building a product that genuinely no one's ever built before, you can run a survey and you can talk to friends and things like that too. Okay, so week 2. Now, a lot of Silicon Valley hustle blog posts will say ignore your competition. If you're a commando, the best way to get killed is to ignore your competition. You've got to figure out exactly where they are, how they move, which one is the weakest, which one you have to take out, what you can learn from them. So competitor research is important. Once you are post-product market fit, obsessing about your competitors is a bad idea. And again, that advice is for people who've done that. They've already got a rocket ship. And what we have right now is a desire to get into a castle. Okay, so you do competitor research and you do customer interviews. And I realize these emojis look terrible now that they didn't render properly. First things first, you can run a survey pick a company that just pitched to you and say, how do you run a quick survey with less than 5 questions to figure out if people actually do this or do not do this? You look at competitors and shoestring solutions. So if it's a real problem, there's got to be a jugaad for it, right? Somebody's got to be able to figure out कि ये मसला है, इसका हल ये है, ठीक है? अगर नहीं है, and you're the first person in the world where you can find something that no pre-existing solution exists, maybe it's not a real problem, right? Congrats to Airlift, by the way, who raised a lot of money, and they had that problem that I've had since I was a kid. They just needed to find a much, much better way to deliver it, and here we are. So you figure out what competition is, you figure out what doesn't work. Most of the time, it's a suboptimal solution, and that's your opportunity to say, how do I make this? You look at competitors and talk a little bit about that. You can go to their websites, you can read the reviews, and run a survey on your competition. How would you like to use this product? Or how would you feel if this product didn't exist anymore? You interview customers for 2 things. So again, generic advice is talk to your customers. Well, what do you talk to them about? You don't say, "Oh, assalamu alaikum, kya haal hai, kaise hain, kya ho raha hai, aap kya karte hain?" You want to figure out, what do you love about the product that you currently use? What do you love about the solution that you currently use? What do you hate about it? What is something that absolutely bothers you about this solution that makes you want to try something better? You look at NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, and you look at your reviews of your competitors. You go on Reddit, you go on other places, you read their Google Play Store reviews. It doesn't take a long time, but in a week, you can become an expert on somebody else's product for the same problem, which is a great thing to do. So now week 3, you're going deeper. You figured out what the problem is, the fact that it's a real problem, existing solutions exist. Now you're really going deeper and figuring out what people hate about it. Oh, well, the fact that I have to do this, and then this, and then this, and I have to click. I was just talking to a founder before I went on stage, and he said, I'm trying to make something that takes 12 different clicks into 1 click, and I think that's all I need to do. That's the kind of insight you want to be able to get to figuring out, and if you can, what that leads you to is it leads you to figure out some key assumption. Either the thing that's available in the market is really expensive and you can make it 10 times cheaper. Or the thing that's available in the market takes 10, 20, 30, 40 steps and you can reduce it to one step. Or the experience is downright terrible and it takes you from one place to the other and you can make that experience almost magical. That's what your key assumptions are. And now you're ready to build a prototype. You want to build a prototype in 4 or 5 days. Again, if you're a programmer, you can do it. You can figure out a little bit longer if you need to. Try to build a facade of the prototype and try to figure out if you can talk to just 10 people, not more, to validate the assumption that you had come up with before. Instead of, again, asking them questions, pay attention to their body language. Pay attention to the parts where they are kind of dozing off, and pay attention to the parts where they're waking up. And they're like, oh, this is cool. I didn't think this was, oh, it's fast. I like this. Most of the time, they won't say it, so you have to get them to verbalize it. And now you're at a point where you've got the right mechanism to get into this castle. At that point, you're almost there to your way to product market fit. I wish I had more time and I could go into a lot of depth about each and every step of this process, but I'm around and I'm, as the host said, that I'm helpful. So please find me on Twitter. I have no idea what that thing up there is doing, but it was supposed to be like this. Please tell me how I can make this talk better. Please tell me how I can help. There's a lot more to it, but I think as a founder or an early stage company, you've got to figure out what that one thing is that matters in your business and how can you make that better? How can you validate that? Once you do, you will notice that the VC is a lot more excited to talk to you. Your customers will be a lot kinder when you try to get them for feedback. You probably won't have to incent them too much to get them to use your product. And I want to conclude with saying that a great product is the best marketing. And I really hope that in a couple years, 5, 10 years, we've taken a bunch of commandos out of this room and conquered a bunch of castles, and they're now on their way to form their own countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali Nawab. All this commando talk.